Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Awaken Your Inner Genius. And as you can see, we have two lovely people this evening on our broadcast. We have Karen Elkins from California. Say hello, Karen.
Hey, I'm coming from Washington, but I used to live there.
Okay. And yours truly from Virginia. And we'll have several other panel guests join us shortly, having a few technical difficulties. So I want to welcome everyone back. And this evening, we are on Unit 5, Lesson 17. And I just wanted to share with everyone that the first few pages of Lesson 17 are very powerful. And we were just discussing prior to going live that here we are approaching 67 years since this was written. And the Russells felt that it was that important to include this in the home study course. And the beauty is that the Russells have given us the solution to the answer to these problems, but these problems are really heavy. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right on in here. We're going to bypass our meditation this evening that we normally do because of our short staffing. But nonetheless, I think the content and the delivery by Karen and myself will meet expectations. So without further ado, James, let's jump in here. And Karen, I would like you to read that first paragraph for us, and that'll kickstart things.
All right. The time has come when we are now ready to comprehend what the trouble is with the world and the only remedy that is possible to save it from chaos, which now inevitably faces it, is inevitably face it. It is not wise to ignore the handwriting on the wall of the world's construct. We wish to so vividly paint the picture of the present rapid fall of man that everybody can plainly see that our civilization is doomed to self-destruction if world leaders do nothing to reverse the condition which are causing our fall into another age of bestial dark, which is right now, I'm not sure if they're going to change it because they're part of the problem.
Yeah. So for us, now it's interesting. I guess 70 years ago, world leaders had more of a role to play in dictating and people looking up, respecting, and following world leaders. But today, it's a different ball game. It really is. But the conditions that have gotten us here and the moral decline, the decline of character, and that which makes a civilization grow and continue. So here we are, October 6, 2024, and you look at the chaos in the world wars. The Middle East is getting ready to blow up, and we thought that all this stuff was coming to an end because of technology and the advance of weaponry, that nobody would test it and so on and so forth. And here we are repeating it again. And I believe earlier, Karen, you were mentioning Egypt and Egyptians and their way of life, and how at one point in time they had this high moral. Well, look who it is.
Margaret. Hi, sorry I'm a little bit late.
Better late than never.
I think
Anyway, well. So anyway, Margaret, it's not here.
now we're having again. I think they're talking about golden Egypt and the Pyramid Age as being the age of character. And that was when, for a very long time, they lived within, I'm going to call it Hermetic principles. And the Hermetic principles were very much about living their golden standards, living like they talked about the 10 Commandments, the golden rule. And that's where he very much speaks to that in this chapter of history. And then I remember there was part where Hermes basically said there will be a time come, which will be a dark time on earth when people where they came from, the pyramids were built, or any of the great sort of things in the past. So that's one of the things that he talks about. And I think the other thing that's coming up real heavily is the idea of World War III. So I think John, as you were talking about it right now, it's not just even that. We can talk about Ukraine, but even with where we're sitting right now with that, the people in Lebanon, which he talks about also in this chapter, have been completely displaced. There are people, which is like 18% of their population, fleeing. So where do these people go? I mean, look about the millions of people that has to either been killed in Ukraine or had to find new places to be. We're displacing people. And then when we look at the current state of weather, and a lot of people are looking at the way the what is it, the geoengineering that's been going on. You can find it on Siri, you can find it anywhere. It's like, what in the heck is going on? It's like humanity is at the being at a chokehold, and we're wondering how we're going to sustain and what is happening. And the two people that are actually running the tech on our show, which is James and Joey, actually have been part of the hurricane. And it's been interesting because basically they said the people on the ground are the people that are helping, and they're local people. And the government has been kind of short on showing up. So things that you expected when they say your government leaders have to do it, it actually goes back to kind of the golden age of Egypt, where it was you take care of your neighbor, you take care of each other. That was the rule. People were first, and we took each other. So,
You know, the role of religion in the world, Christianity and the Muslim, all of it, you know, the Far Eastern philosophies and so on, they used to be the golden thread to where a moral fiber and character was taught at an early age. And, you know, it was brought into the home, and from the home, you know, into schooling. And then after that, it was taken out into the world. I remember way back when, you know, in middle school, not middle school, but even elementary school, you were taught the basics of life. Like you walk down on the right-hand side of the hallway. Something that simple. Think about it. And I remember years ago walking into the local mall and how people just walk on both sides, coming and going and butting into each other and so on, without any kind of organization or consideration to others. Just little things like that. That's a simple example right there of how there is this decline and there's just no attention paid. No, I don't know whether it's taught or not taught. All right. So we have to fall back on that. Now, Margaret, I was thinking, other than Angela Carr, I believe you're the one person that spent the second most time with our co-author, Leo, here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I know that you got an earful from her, not necessarily in a bad way, but she would, I'm sure, share with you how she felt. Because remember, she wrote this in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
You were there in the late 70s and with her in the 80s. Can you kind of share with our audience maybe what some of the things that she discussed with you?
Well, I think that she always felt a certain level of fear with the direction that mankind was going. You know, she rarely spoke politics. I can't say that I really even knew what party she belonged to. I know that she did vote, but I think she was the type of person that you know, would vote for whoever was showing the best values. You know, I would say she was probably very independent. I think what I've really enjoyed about this lesson in the home study course is that she's essentially describing that when man first becomes aware of something higher than himself, he actually pointed to the sun. So in other words, the sun was the God, because the sun only brought good. And this was prior to any religion. Like, you know, religion did not divide into different sects at this time. She's indicating a time that was like 6,000 years BC, the Pyramid Age. So this was really what's interesting about it is if you think about it, man is emerging. He was a hunter gatherer, probably initiating agriculture, but he found that his fellow man was more of an asset. That when people were working together, the camaraderie and the benefits to all was awakened within people at that time. And there wasn't really anything dividing them. They didn't have a monetary system, so there was no hoarding. It was only mutual benefit. And so, in other words, everybody pretty much had to have something to offer. And so people were incentivized to want to offer something to their fellow man, you know. And I
Yes,
think,
I'm sorry, what wasn't it the Babylonian Empire that introduced the monetary system to the world?
right, because Leo's indicating that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Yes, that's
You
when
know,
greed became, and the fear of losing, not having, right?
right.
Fear, boy, you talk about the great nullifier, fear.
That's right.
You
And
know,
I think what's interesting, it was kind of very logical that the sun would be, their god, because everybody would face their face to the sun in the morning, and then in the evening it's a time of stillness and quietude. But everything that was good came with the sun. The plants leaned toward the sun. And it was common in this early civilization. And what's interesting is she's saying that we haven't even gone back up to the level that this Egyptian civilization accomplished in 6000 BC. So, in other words, we think we're so great today. We are advanced. Well, we think we're advanced technologically. I mean, they built the pyramids. So,
right?
I mean, you can't say they were not advanced. But
Yes.
the fact that, we have not really accomplished an age of character that was accomplished 6000 BC. And so
Well,
that's why her studies, I think, are so vital, because she gives us a roadmap to actually develop that age of character, that ethics.
when I was there, 76 and 77, and you stop and think of where we were scientifically, technologically,
Mm,
and Leo would always make the point. She said that mankind, and human relations has not kept up with technological advances. And then you go back to 1871, Edwin Markham said, "In vain do we build the city if
mhm.
first we cannot build the man." And that's what the Russells are trying to give us here um, through these lessons. Is they're trying to give us a roadmap of where we are, what's happening, how to fix it, and where we want to be. So this is the last time that the Russells are going to speak about world events, the character of humanity, and so on. And then we're going to step into the science in the next unit. So I just wanted to prepare everyone listening to us this evening that there's a purpose and there's a reason behind these lessons. And there's the reasons that the Russells paused for a moment to bring your attention to world events. And there's no two separate people in the universe. There's only one mind, there's only one thing. And love and balance is the only thing that's going to fix this. So what we'll do, what our attempt is for our audience in Awakening Your Inner Genius, is for each of us to touch 10 souls who can touch 10 souls, and hope that multiplication principle will make a difference. One drop into the ocean, you can't see the effect, but it does raise the ocean level to that little bit of degree. So that's our purpose, and that's our intent here with Awaken Your Inner Genius, is that for all of us to jump in here and reach out and pull our fellow man along a little bit to the best we can. James, if you could take us to the next highlighted area that Kimberly set aside for us. Let's take a peek at that. All right. I'll take this one, and I'll start at the top here. The most conspicuous symptoms which have accompanied every fall of man for thousands of years are these: lowered idealism with resultant lowered culture, character, morality, righteousness, and justice; disappearance of sex idealism with the resultant promiscuity and homosexuality; greed and lust for possessions and power; crime and youth delinquency; and fear of wars arising from international disunity. These causes we have with us in great intensity and measure than ever before in human history. A cause cannot exist without being followed by its effect. You must admit that the cause is here. You must also know that its effect cannot be avoided. Yet no one seems concerned because it seems unbelievable. Socrates did not believe that the high civilization of Greece could fall, but it did fall. So here we have it. So as we read that paragraph, as we reflect on that paragraph, and we all take a look around us, I don't see any difference in today than 67 years ago, except I think today it's even worse. It's much worse today, in my opinion. Now we're here and we're surviving, but we're doing a lot of existing, if you know what I mean by that. Everybody, a lot of people are on that treadmill of life, and they don't get a moment to pause, to get a chance to take a few minutes to meditate and reflect, or maybe create something and be productive in that way. So, James, let's drop down just a little bit, and Margaret, I'm going to let you take that next paragraph there, where there must be a reason. Okay.
John, let's go back for one. I think the whole idea of lower idealism is an interesting topic to touch on, because that's the idea of imagination. That's the idea of your mind. It's the part where you create. And so when you don't even address the point of your own imagining, your own mind creation in that, when you just think that all you're doing is surviving, kind of what you're talking about, then there's no imagination for the culture. There is no creativity. There is no great genius. There is no what's your then character really based on? Because usually your creativity, the things you do, the things you gift, are the things where your identity is. So this is where, when you don't have that, you have no sense of self-worth. You don't value anything else. And so it all kind of, to me, compounds on each other, and each one builds on the other, which is really an interesting thing. And doesn't make any difference what side of the aisle you're on politically, but if you're teaching children that it's okay to have sex with older people, then we're actually already in our school system teaching low moral standards, or I'm going to say personal boundaries, where you have a right to be your own autonomous, person. We're already saying you should walk away and look sexy. You should have that short dress on. You should have all those things that actually compromise you as a person, in a sense. I mean, I remember doing business, and I'm the same age as you are, John. So the interesting.
You're in your 50s?
Yeah, I was born 55. And so I just remember when we used to look at the old movie stars. You and I are the same. So people had some self-respect, and you didn't walk around making yourself completely known, or whatever you wore didn't require any imagination. I mean, now that's kind of what a lot of people do, as opposed to having some self-respect. There's those moral boundaries between you and less the other person that you're most intimate, that balanced partner. So anyway, that's my thinking on that.
Well, that grouping that you just beautifully laid out is social consciousness.
Yeah.
That people are so preoccupied with the body and the looks and all of that, that they could care less about others. It's all about me. It's all about how I look and how I might appear to others. So we've got a long way to go, but that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, and it's okay to look good. I mean, we don't want you to do anything other than we want you to get up in the morning and take care and have some art on you, have some fashion, because but
yes.
do it so that you're just not like a walking.
I think when John indicated, people are kind of on a treadmill, it's just that people are not able to really express what their gifts are because they feel like they have to earn that 100 grand a year or whatever it is. And so they look for a shortcut on how to earn that, even though it may not be speaking to them. It may not be expressing their true selves. So people don't really have the freedom to offer what they're good at. They're forced to make a living, but I will say that there's a lot of diversity now on the internet that I think is allowing people to kind of rediscover their gifts and rediscover valuable information or knowledge to others. And so a lot of people have discovered a niche for themselves because of the diversity that the internet has offered. And Leo always did speak of the power of TV. Well, in our age, it would be the internet, because she said if values are expressed universally through radio waves or internet waves, it could do so much to leaven the entire civilization.
I was just getting ready to comment on that, Margaret. It's a mind wave universe, isn't it? I was going to say how the internet and all the different social platforms that there are that people can express their creativity and so on, and bring a little beauty and fun, into the world. And we're so busy trying to exist that you very seldom get a moment to just reflect on who you are and your true purpose and so on. So anyway, James, I was thinking if you could move us along to the next highlighted area. And what we'll do here is, let's see. I don't think, now, let me just read this part right here. The great artist and idealist of 1900 would starve today. Entertainment has grown vulgarly sensual. And I think you mentioned that earlier, Karen.
Yeah.
Character, morality, and justice are fast lowering. Crime, even unto treason, is fast multiplying. My God, look what is happening. Now, it's difficult for us to jump into this because we're trying to keep it on the high side and so on. But real world is all you got to do is either turn on the TV or look outside and you can see something's wrong. We don't have that unity. We don't have that balance. And so if the government is the solution to our problems, then we're all
Got a problem.
in a bad way. Yeah, we got a big problem. So, and there's no reason for us to transfer that responsibility. I think each one of us has got to accept our roles, and try to make this world a better place. And so that's what I try to do. And calling myself, quote, a Russell student, I try to live this philosophy to the best of my knowledge. I try to demonstrate it to inspire others. And, if we all could, inspire one person a day, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And one thing that I'm looking down here and I see the love principle of giving and taking. And I don't know, maybe you guys can comment on this, but as I drive around in my county, and I'll see various either local governments and outside their buildings. And I don't know if you guys have seen those, how people are really creative with those big love signs. Have you guys seen those?
Mhm.
And that gives me hope. I mean, like here locally in the country, they'll use a big like tractor tire for the O, and they'll use
Oh,
different things for the other letters. And I'm like, you know what? There's something there. There's hope. You don't want to just kind of throw your hands up and say, "Oh, to hell with it." There's hope. Everyone wants to be loved, right, Margaret? Remember Leo saying that?
That's right. And Virginia's motto is Virginia is for lovers. And I think it's
Yeah.
it's a marketing that I think the state encouraged. So a lot of businesses and a lot of the wineries in Virginia, they all have their own customized love sign. And so it's really a lovely idea, great marketing idea for Virginia.
You know what might be nice? I don't know if Joey and James want to come on for a minute, because they have been affected by the hurricane, and they've talked to us a little bit about the community and what the community is doing for them.
I think that's a great idea. James, if you want to show your face.
Yeah.
There he is.
Sure.
Look at that beautiful face, will you? I'm telling you.
Yeah, because Joey can come on too, because you guys have been affected by it, but you're getting a lot of love.
Yeah, I mean, so what I've just seen is a lot of people helping people. We do have the linemen and local officials taking care of things, but those things can only go so far. I mean, you have tons of houses with, I guess for context, let me say I'm in upstate South Carolina, so we're not in the area. I'm personally not in the area that is affected, like you see in Asheville, where the town is completely gone underwater. We didn't have flooding and stuff like that, but there were a lot of down trees, down power lines, destroyed structures, homes. So there are a lot of people just they have a heart to help. They want to go help remove trees from vehicles and cut people out of their driveways so they can get to their loved ones and deliver food and basic resources. I've seen so many people open up their homes, just tons of people on Facebook, just for complete strangers, just opening up their homes. If you need a shower, if you need to do laundry, opening up their homes to the linemen, because we have people from Canada, from all over the country here trying to restore the infrastructure. And these people, I guess they have housing set up for them, but not all of them do, apparently. So opening up their homes to linemen. And so it reminds you that in even the worst times that there is hope, as you were saying, John.
Well, the point I'd like to make is that why does it take a natural disaster or a disaster of any kind for humanity to show our true nature of helping one another, to reaching out and showing that love and support for each other? It's a shame that we just can't incorporate that in our everyday lives. And what I find, not that I get out and about all the time, but what I find is that I just took a little getaway and nobody talks to anybody. As you're walking by people and you're, you're going up and down a hallway and passing people, nobody says anything.
I think one thing that has happened with the internet is the same phenomenon you see in larger cities. Is there's so many people, whereas I grew up in a small town, so meeting a new person was an event. It was a thing, and you maybe were excited to see a person. I mean, it wasn't that small of a town, but now there's plenty of people. You see how big the world is. You see how many people there are. So it's like I don't need to talk to someone. I have enough people around me. I mean, I'm bad about that myself. I don't even talk to my neighbors. I mean, so it is unfortunate, but there's other ways to build your own sense of community. So I do intentionally try to make connections with certain people, but I guess gone are the days where you would have those neighborhood experiences until something like this happens, because that's another outcropping of what's happened. Is you see a lot of people that never met their neighbors until now, and then they're outside with their neighbors and they're cooking and the kids are playing and stuff like that.
My brother actually lives just south of Asheville, so they're in the thick of it. They've been digging out the past week, and he said that the thing that he's the most grateful for is their community, because they're on a small lake with an HOA, 26 houses, and so they're all pulling together, cleaning up the community. And he made the remark just by text earlier today that the greatest asset has been the community he lives in.
You know, and hopefully, yeah, I mean, that's, I think hopefully a lot of people will see this. And one thing I did, we went and tried to deliver some groceries and just help in some ways and what little ways we could. And I brought my kids along. And so I was thinking, you know, how can we make this a lesson for them to see how good it feels to give and how energizing that feels. And so you just never know whether you're either on the giving end of that, what you could spark in someone, just showing them how much joy you can get. Giving is its own gift. And then the other side of that, if you're someone who is, you know, I went to this one home and you could tell they needed it. Their refrigerator was empty, and this is going on 8 days. And, you know, this person had 3 kids. And so if you're a kid and you see that, oh, there are people willing to bring food in this kind of situation, it gives them hope for humanity. And they maybe don't grow up so cynical about everything, because that's the message. Even, you know, even some of this, you could see some cynicism right here in the lesson we're talking about right here.
Yes. James, you made a great point.
Okay, I have a point that I'm going to make a comment to there, John, because here's something I always do. I don't know about you guys, but I travel. I know you guys travel. When I'm in an elevator, I always talk to the people in the elevator. I always make a comment, strike a conversation, and people always really friendly or willing to. You know, you say, hey, those are the coolest like flip-flops I've ever seen. Those are hot pink. And you know, you can start a conversation and people like it because it's
they do.
A connection. And I always say, walk down the street and smile at people.
Yes.
So I think make those connections. I kind of do that all the time. So I don't know. So I said that's a fun way to kind of play with people. Kind of used to look at me when they used to be with me and I'd be talking to strangers. They go, whoa, talk to them all the time. Have some fun.
Yes. You know, Joe, James, you made a great point. And if everyone could realize that one point that you made, that by giving and helping another individual, the joy that is awakened within you knowing that you've helped another human being, you know, it's a wonderful thing, you know, and just think how great people would feel if they gave more.
Yeah.
And it could be something, Karen, just as simple as you said, as initiating a conversation or a smile, or, you know, just a little comment and so on. So anyway, let's move along here. James, can you take us to the next section that Kimberly highlighted for us? We'll move down here. All right. Wow. By thus giving you this knowledge of all of world history boiled down to a thimbleful so you can see it as a whole, you will then readily see that the only chance for human survival and growth into a united and cohesive one world of cooperative man is through rhythmic balance in industry. For industry could be the greatest and most powerful institution on earth, the only one which can unite mankind in its ideal of one world, which government, education, and religion all have failed to do. So now, you know, you got some big names out there. You know, you got Musk and you got, what's his name with Prime? What's that gentleman's name? You know, and these guys, you know, they do a lot of good. They're financially rewarded for it. So you can't begrudge someone because they're successful, but you have to look what they're bringing to the world. Isn't it interesting that private enterprise, like Musk's SpaceX, has got to go up and rescue those 2 astronauts because our own government can't go get them? How sad is that? They've been up there for how long now, Margaret? Has it been like 6 months, 9 months?
Not quite that long, but I think it was projected that they would be there till February.
Yeah.
You know, they were only supposed to be up there, I think, less than a week.
Yeah.
But you're right, John. You know, like even Steve Jobs with Apple, he did a lot to really make the world smaller, through more effective communication. Everybody has a computer in their hand. And some people, of course, would argue that it's separating people. But I think overall, as a whole, it has brought people more into oneness. You know,
Yeah.
everybody do kind of experience a lot of thoughtful downloads.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and also Jeff Bezos with Amazon and
Right.
Prime, you know. So, you know, I think what we all wish for is that industry would always express the best, like the best ethics, you know, and be more balanced in their givings and regivings, because we do see too much industry capture in our government, and so it's becoming heavily weighted, and so it's essentially a pretty serious imbalance. And I think this is the reason why, yeah, we always seem to have a war somewhere in the world, because our defense contractors, they want to sell weapons.
Right.
And that's
That is that.
unfortunate. You know, that's an unfortunate motivation, that they want to increase their bottom line. They'll
You
argue
stop
that
and
it's, yeah. I mean, they'll argue that it's for our safety, but I think it's more their bottom line. They want to make the sales.
it's been more than 100 years since Tesla and Dr. Russell gave the world new technology. And only a percentage of that new knowledge and technology has ever made it to the surface. Government and entities made sure that which would make mankind truly free and independent of the quote, the grid, if you will, hasn't come to fruition. And Karen, you went to Tesla Tech, right?
Yeah.
And it's wonderful for that knowledge to be reinvented and re-talked about and so on. But it's the practical application of that new science. And so hopefully someday that this new science will be accepted for the benefit of mankind, instead of governments holding it and hoarding it themselves and making life more difficult than it actually needs to be. I thought that, in the early Star Treks, okay, now I'm taking most of our viewers probably weren't even born yet to even know what the first Star Trek was. But, the coolest thing, and Gene Roddenberry must have been a hell of a genius, because, he kind of nailed it. The replicator did away with greed and fear in society, because you could have anything you wanted to whatever degree you want it, right? And so on. So it eliminated that part of society that is a true negative. And look where we are today, the flip phone, the communicator, and look where we are today with technology and so on. So anyway,
John, I'll put up
all right. So
John, let me put 2 cents in there, because having been to more than one conference
yes,
around the world, I will say when people get together from around the world at the conferences, they're always working together. There's no divide between one country or the other country. It is man working together to solve problems, and they're always bantering back and forth. That is the benefit of actually going to a conference. It's the people getting together and co-creating and co-inspiring and bringing that little extra bit to the next thing. And so I think if it wasn't like, I'm going to say exactly how I feel, it's kind of like if our certain heads of companies weren't like dogs who had to pee on a certain fire hydrant and say they had to own it and say that one was mine and I'm going to take that, we in the world would be doing just fine. And if they didn't feel like they needed to control the grid, we would have, as Tesla said, we could be driving cars and without gas. And there have been plenty of innovations that would take us and solve all the problems that we have. But heaven forbid that they should come out, because then the grid would not be controlled. So It's unfortunate. But you know what? It is through industry that we've made a better world. And through the being able to communicate, we are more global citizens, and we find each other. I mean, I don't want to go kill a Russian. I don't want to go kill a Ukraine. I don't want to kill anybody. I mean, why do we want to do that? We all get up in the morning and have a family and want to drive our car and go do what we do. We this nonsense I would love to just kind of end. It's just ridiculous.
Yes.
Actually, going back to industry, there is one thing that I thought was hopeful is Elon Musk, when he developed the Tesla electric vehicle, a lot of the patents that he took out, he allowed other companies to use those patents without any kind of royalty,
Right.
just because he wants to
that's
see
nice.
it become more prevalent so that the infrastructure is built and it helps all the companies. So that's one way where Elon is expressing giving in industry. You know, in the SpaceX program, that's still privately owned. But I do remember Elon said at one point that there are certain times when he will not file for a patent because the patent industry is also an industry of control.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, think about that. The whole idea and the concept behind patents, right? I mean, why do we need it? Just give it to the world. Let the world benefit from it. Why does someone have to kind of say, "Oh, this is my idea and this is the only," I'm not in compliance with that whole thing. So, James, what I'd like to do is before we go to our first break, I wanted to point out a sentence on close to the bottom of 318, if that's possible.
Ooh, you're
Just
jumping ahead.
scroll on down for me a little bit. Okay. And right there at the top, it said, mankind still must learn that the most important thing in life is what one does to his neighbor. And that needs to be ingrained in people's thinking. So instead of thinking how I can get over on my neighbor, how I can beat him out of something, right? It's what could I do to enhance or benefit or help my neighbor out today? You know, just a reverse in thinking. So, James, I'm going to let you take us to our first break and do what you got to do. And I guess we'll be back in 3 minutes, I believe it is. All right. So we'll see you folks in just a little. All right. Yeah, it looks like we have everybody back. Very good. All right. Now, so what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to carry on here, and we'll pick up right where we left off. And Margaret, do you mind reading for us that next paragraph right there, starting with religion?
Right. Religion did not come into the first civilization for a long time, for religion is a system of beliefs in spiritual beings, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, which takes time to develop. Moral character was most essential to a race of men who were trying to live together cooperatively as a social order. And so it was that early man began his civilization by realizing that what one does to his neighbor was the most important thing in every man's life.
Boy, I'll tell you what. So just think about that. I mean, the Russells are taking us back literally tens of thousands of years, and that principle hasn't changed, should not change, right? Now, James, I'm going to have to ask you to assist me this evening. I understand that we might have some questions or comments from our audience this evening. I cannot see those, so I'm going to ask you to help me with those, James.
All right.
I don't think we've had any questions yet. We have more comments, and we have quite a lot of people online, so we want to thank them for being with us. There's Karen and Rita and Deborah, and yeah, so there's quite a few sitting here making comments and kind of following along with us. So far, I can't see a question per se.
I'll just pull a few of the comments up. There's a few good ones here. Here we go. Karen had a good one.
Let's take a peek and see how our audience is
Be able
doing.
to see them on the screen now. Can you see it on the screen, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Karen says, it occurs to me that industry can be good if it does not destroy nature. Our relationship with nature should also be a balanced interchange and is very missing in humanity's awareness. You know, by her making that comment, it made me think back a couple of years ago. I was watching in British Columbia and Canada and how their forestry, they go in and they decimate an entire region of forest as far as the eye could see. And I thought to myself, wow, that's not being very responsible. You know, you got to leave something for rebirth. And that's how man does it. You know, when this country was being settled, right? And we moved out west and you had hunters and trappers and so on. You know, there were 600 million buffalo on the prairies, and it got reduced to 50 left in the world. Think about that for a moment. And it took an act of Congress to save a species. So maybe we need to do the same thing with mankind.
I like Karen's comment. Karen's comment says here, would Walter see nature as our neighbor? I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, I would see more than our neighbor. It would be our sustainer, our lifeblood.
Think about where we would be without Mother Nature. Nowhere.
Yeah.
No life.
Yep.
So just think of nature as God. Think of nature as life and beauty and so on. So, all right. Now, James, I'm going to have to fall back on you here a little bit for me to move us along with what Kimberly may have highlighted for us. Oh, all right. Now, you know, that's an interesting point right here. Now, the Russells aren't knocking anybody, but I'll go ahead and pick this one up in the red, James. This early religion of beliefs in spiritual beings soon added supernatural beings and magic to those beliefs, and then made a big thing of fear. Even those early men who weakened ethical practices by infiltrating religious beliefs devised many ways of profiting by them, even as they did thousands of years later on a much larger scale. As this fact is one of the greatest contributors to world degradation of today, we cannot pass it by unnoticed. Otherwise, we could not tell you what is the matter with man's world. We will refer to this later in relation to the Book of the Dead, which was written for the express purpose of obtaining money for magical charms and other means of helping the dead to escape the various punishments they would otherwise have to undergo. With after-death fear came evil and sin, pure inventions of man, which did not exist in the high stages of Egyptian life. Neither did greed for material possessions dominate this first high race. That also grew and spread later into Babylon. So think about that for a moment. So here we are. We just mentioned this thousands of years later. I don't think we've gotten a whole lot better, have we?
Well, remember Martin Luther? Martin Luther rebelled against the Catholic Church because they were always trying to get sort of money for the prayer for forgiveness. Do you remember that? And he that was a really good movie called, the movie Luther. That was amazing. But that's really exactly the same thing. He says, you can't do that. And there's one thing that, Walter, we had in the last one, which we had, you can't erase your sin because it's put in the crystalline matrix of the holographic nature of the universe. But the other thing that I really liked from the last lesson was we are evolving. We're people that are making a difference every time we step and we get better and better and better. And so it's interesting how in the Book of the Dead, in the Catholic tradition, where being paid off to have a sum would pretendly maybe forgive you. But then when you actually move on in life, you've made a mistake, you move on and you correct it and you're fine. It's not like it has to harbor you, or it doesn't have to So I think that's one thing I like about the Russell work too.
Yes. It's interesting. We all have to take into account, and the Russells say this, that mankind, the idea of man, is still in its infancy. Okay. And why we have to go through these cycles of destroying ourselves, destroying Mother Nature, destroying our culture and each other, and then having to start all over again. It's not necessary, but it's only going to be through knowledge that will change that. So that's our purpose in awakening the inner genius of all of those that are listening. And we're hoping that our listeners will reach out to others and ask them to join in and help spread this message. Because, here I am, I turned 70 last week, and, I've had an opportunity to study, I won't say everything, but a lot of things. And to this day, there's still nothing. Here I am, out here supporting and trying to propagate the home study course, because it's complete. There's lots of philosophies out there, but there's only one. There's only one teaching that can scientifically give you credence to your purpose, why you're here and what you're here for, and so on. So anyway, James, let's move on to the next highlighted area here. And Margaret, you and Karen, feel free if there's something that you've read that you feel that we want to spend a little more attention to, we will. All right. Margaret, you want to take that next one right there? It is necessary.
Okay, sure. It is necessary to give a little space to describe to you the basic cause of the battle between the spiritual and physical natures of early man, so that you can comprehend that the whole human race has gradually reached higher and higher standards of physical unfolding, which have been expressed by greed for power, physical possessions, and entertainment for the senses, at the expense of suppressing its spiritual qualities of character, morality, and mind inspiration. In other words, the human race has for thousands of years been gaining the whole world and paying the price of it by losing its own soul.
Boy, you talk about driving it home. Right there it is. Man will sacrifice his own soul.
And Leo, I always said it really is a drama between our senses and our soul. And everything of the senses is physical. And
Yes.
everything of the soul is quality and invisible, but it's something you can know. So, but the senses really seem to overtake us. And that's why she often said, go for a quiet walk in the woods.
I think if you look at the news today and you look at the one thing that's in the headlines, a lot of places, that the character Mr. Diddy, who has had his parties and entertained all the politicians and the Hollywood people,
Mm-hmm.
and all the seduction that's gone in, and all how they sold their soul for
Yes.
for being on stage.
Yes.
Or being
Yes.
liked, and that was the cool place to be. But again, that, I mean, to me, there's no other more profound example than that one.
Yes. Well, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone. Anybody can look out and see where we are. Some people, have blinders on and but you have to, one of the things that I had to teach myself years ago is to devalue. Margaret, you were talking about sensed man and spiritual man.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you devalue the physical, knowing that it's simply a projection on the universal screen of existence, and it's not even real, it's just motion, and how we attach all these values to motion, to ideas. I'm not, I'm not trying to devalue these things, but the emphasis that we put on these things to where it drives us to make stupid decisions, and we do crazy things, and so on. So that would be something that I would encourage people, if they find themselves struggling a little bit, and they're in one direction, and they're like, oh, wow, nothing's really benefiting from here. And so you might want to just take a little peek inside, pull back a little bit, and try not to attach such a great value.
I still remember Leo, she often said that, we only have the use of it while we're here. In other words, we're kind of borrowing the use of it, and we, of course, can't take it with us. So,
That's
it's just a tool while we're here.
I had a friend one time who was quite a spiritual guy, and he said, the people are clamoring to come in from the other dimensions to our dimension, so that they can actually be in the body, because that way you can taste something, you can touch something, and feel something. But that in itself was the juicy bit for being human. But I guess we still have to monitor ourselves, because all of our senses are electric, so everything gets charged, and we get pulled by those charges, and we live with our charges. So
yes.
And then that they used to say controlling the horses was it. I mean, I think it was on the Vedic tradition. Control those horses. It means control your five senses. And that
we talk about light a lot, and the Russells are going to share some more science about light with us. But in this 3D dimensional world that we live in, this is the slowest that light can be. You can't slow light down any more than where we are on this 3 plane edition. But think about the term ascension. All right. Now, there's a few people that mastered ascension. All right. Jesus was one of them. Right. So just think of the simultaneous universes that are taking place. And Karen, I'm bringing this up because of what you said. People are saying, look, man, get out of the way. It's nice to know this stuff, but I wouldn't mind smelling a flower or rubbing elbows with somebody or watching a game or playing a musical instrument, whatever it is that they would like to demonstrate and feel. And so we don't want to diminish this physical thing, because it's a beautiful thing. Life. This physical body is a wonderful thing. God wouldn't have given it to us if it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. James, what do we have next, brother? All right. Whew. All right. Karen, would you want to go ahead and pick up on this one for us?
Sure. It says, during these During those limited ages, his sole thought was survival for his body, which depended solely upon food and shelter. For this, he had to fight constantly. Therefore, for those endless ages, his instincts were concentrated upon fighting and killing the other that might have some necessity for existence. During this period, he had no moral nature whatsoever. He was as much animal as any other creature of the jungle and the forest were animals. Gradually, he began to observe and reason to an extent sufficient to make weapons and to help him to kill. And during all the periods, he made his weapons from stone. Not until the consciousness of man in him began did he make weapons or other utensils out of metal.
There you go.
We have an evolution of weaponry.
And the principle, just think about it. Back then, they would kill one person at a time.
Yep.
Right. And then, I remember in Dr. Russell's Grand Illumination, his 39-day light illumination, 1921, God showed him what would happen in World War II, showed him the millions. I don't know what the exact number is. I've heard different numbers, but the lowest number that I've heard in regard to World War II was a minimum of 50 million people died.
Yeah.
And isn't that just amazing? For what purpose? Of someone trying to control the world for themselves, and it's just ridiculous. And that's why Dr. Russell had to see that and experience that. And that's why he brought Leo into his life shortly after World War II, because this message had to be delivered by the two of them. Love and human relations had to balance the science. I can see you're anxious there, Karen.
No, I was just thinking we're right on the precipice, because it's like, does Israel go in and get rid of their nuclear plant, which would nuke that whole area, or are they destroying things in Ukraine where they're destroying and potentially dealing with their nuclear plant? And if we send missiles in, we could have nukes on our own shore. I mean, people are not. I do not know what these government leaders are thinking, except one world dominance, which makes to what? So you can have your digital IDs, and they can tell you what to buy. I mean, really?
I don't know. I looked at my Karen the other day, and I was saying to her, I said, things will take care of themselves. All right. And you look at what's happening in the Middle East. Now, you have to understand, this has been happening for thousands of years. It's a man-dominated region. Okay. And so man is a warlike creature. And that's what they do. So, and you say to yourselves, and I did say to her, I said, why is it that all the neighboring countries around there will not open their borders to any fugitives, any of the Hamas people? So there must be something unknown to us in that region of these people that their neighbors won't take them in. I just found that kind of puzzling. I don't know.
All I can say is what I've heard is that they are not a working kind of class people. And so they've been refugees for a long time. So as a consequence, they're not necessarily assimilable into a working. That's all I've heard. But that's whether that's accurate or not.
Leo always said, really, the base is fear. When man fears another person or another culture, then they're going to exclude that culture. They're going to exclude those. And really, I think the point that the Russells are making here is that mankind, we essentially emerged from the jungle. We had to kill in order to eat. We had to kill at that time. We had to compete for food. So it's ingrained in man, in the mass, to be a fighter to get what they want. And until we reach a higher spiritual level, we can so easily revert back to that, which is what happened during the Great Wars. We feared one another and we fought one another. But like the early civilization in Egypt, their neighbors only brought good and they had plenty. They had abundance. But now, because we seem to still fear our neighbor, we feel like we have to get the better of them. We have to get more for ourselves because we're reverting back to the taking impulse of what we had when we were in the jungle or when we were hunter-gatherers. And so the rest, yeah.
Thinking, Margaret, think about this though. Every culture, whether it's Italy or China or France, there's an identity that goes with it, an acculturation of a flavor. And when we used to travel, that's what we used to love to do, is to actually go visit different flavors. That's why there's no one kind of spice. And it's not that you need to dominate it, but you can certainly enjoy it. But when the governments go in to take assets of other countries without giving fair balance in return, and you leave other people impoverished, it's a problem.
Exactly, because
but the different cultures actually add for the flavor. And
definitely.
I used to love to travel, and that was the whole thing. I wanted to see the different costumes. I wanted to see the different, lifestyles. They all made for, because imagine if God only created, one kind of toothpaste or one kind of, tree. He doesn't. He is a prolific, creator, just vast. Think of the amount of birds and the colors and the different kind of frogs. My goodness, it's endless. And so we get to explore that richness. But you need to when you go into places and somebody comes into your home, I don't come in, unless you offer me to bring something, you don't come in and invade. And you don't take over somebody's culture because that's what they're proud of. And right now we have an assault on every culture going on in all the Western world to value who and what those things are. And that's terrible. Because
I think that's what's creating such an imbalance
right now that it is.
And
And
that's why there's suffering. It's like the Russells always said, when there's a residue of imbalance, it's going to wreak havoc and trouble for all of us.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in our world currently. So we need to try and bring that back into balance.
Well, there's this other Karen. There's three of us Karens. So there's this Karen that's online too. There's your Karen, there's this Karen, and now there's that Karen. And she says, yes, we fear death too, because our myth beliefs about it. And that goes back to part of what we were talking about in the earlier part. So thank you, Karen, for bringing that too, because I think the Book of the Dead was making you sinned and you went somewhere where you're going to go to hell in between and what was going to happen to you. So, again, sowing the seeds of, but that's also sowing the seeds of guilt and shame and everything else. Seeds and stuff. So it's like, so go apologize. I think in AA, don't they have a thing where whatever you trespassed against or something, you have to go say, I'm sorry. I've learned better. At least you have to go back and say, I'm sorry, or I recognize that I won't do it again or something. So
I think Ken is our regional expert in that arena.
He is, but he's not with us tonight.
Yeah, for 20 some years. Karen, I wanted
There's a comment here from Deborah. She says, consciousness needs the senses to expand itself and make the beingness more purposeful.
Totally agree.
I thought that's beautifully said.
Isn't that nice?
Very good, Deborah. Karen, you were mentioning about God didn't create just one thing or one of anything. And you were talking about my Karen. So she went out and replaced some toothpaste, and I usually do Crest 3D white. So I said, hey, honey, I was in the shower. I said, could you hand me some toothpaste? So she got a new one out. She just kind of handed it to me. Of course, the shower was all over me. And I just kind of grabbed it and I just took the lid off. I didn't even look at it. And I'm putting it on and I was like, what in the hell? And she had gotten baking soda 3D something toothpaste, and it tasted horrible, right? So it made me think of that example when you said, "Oh, well, God just wouldn't create one thing," and I'm thinking, my God, I'm glad we got more than one one toothpaste.
John, your new job is fluoride is now they finally put it in the news that it actually deteriorates your IQ by 30%. So anybody who's doing fluoride toothpaste, please don't do that anymore.
Yes,
Please,
and the
please
tablets,
make
throw
sure
them
you
down
have
the
filtered
toilet.
water. They're starting to think about taking it out of the water in cities because it is actually a contaminant, and it's just yeah. Anyway,
But we're improving day by day. Civilization will get it right, hopefully.
you know
Sometime.
who's actually making a shift, and I think it's coming out. It's because we have John F. Kennedy Jr. sitting in there going, "We're going to make America healthy again." So you know what? There's some stuff coming out that's good.
Yes.
So thank goodness for people who are brave.
Yes. Common sense should be your approach. If you're
Well,
questioning anything, and if it
you
doesn't
don't
measure up,
John, you know what? We think that we're told the right thing, and then when you find out you've been conned, that's a whole nother ball game.
I tell you, I think I mentioned this before, that when I was president, people would call in or email, and it was basically older people that discovered this message for the first time, and they would vent exactly what you just said, Karen, to find out that they had been misled, misguided, and told a bunch of untruths just to keep them from the truth.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It really is sad, because just think how great the world could be.
Yeah.
If we didn't withhold and we just gave, told the truth, tried to enhance everyone's life as we go. So James, take us to the next highlighted area here.
I think we're making it to the end. We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, we're doing really good this evening. All right, let's see what we have here. Let's see. James, let's drop down to the yellow right there. There you go. There we go. Margaret, I think you're up on this one.
Sounds good. Do you not also clearly see that any individual man or nation of men or world of men who have descended morally or culturally quite easily revert to their old instinctive qualities and rob and kill and enslave other men until all that they have gained of culture and character in generations is lost in a plunge toward their old jungle status? Can you not see this degradation quickly taking place during the last half century of wars with their wholesale killings? That is the position in which the world of man finds itself today. Long ages of being constantly inoculated with the teachings of after death fear and greed for wealth and power for the physical body had bred the kind of man and civilization which imaged his thinking.
Yes. So thank God that we're old enough that we can look back, and not that it's recent history, but see all this chaos and the wars, and it's still going on today. These quote leaders, these people that think they can just take what they want and rule countries and rule people and do whatever they want, and it's just going to take time. There's no instant cure to to the ills of this world, but thank God that we're aware of them, right? And the Russells have given us a template to be able to identify, to know where we were, where we are, and hopefully where we're going in a brighter way, in the light instead of the darkness. Because I'll tell you what, we're not out of the woods yet.
Mm-mm.
This is my personal review from what I see and it's happening in the world and so on. And I would advise everyone listening that the most important thing in the world is you. You must take care of you first, because only in doing that can you help another human being. So that's the most important thing. So get in here, get your home study course, read it. Again, our job is not to read verbatim this home study course for you. You're supposed to have read it in advance. And our job is to highlight, the important parts. All right. And then if you have questions along the way with us, that's what we're here for, to help guide you. And I love the comments from our audience. It's a nice gauge for us to see where everyone is. And I enjoyed this. This is one of my true highlights of my week, to get on here and see all these beautiful faces, even though I'm technologically challenged. I don't see anybody.
Deborah does have an interesting question, though. She
All right.
said, she's asking, do you think the fear of death, the unknown, is a seed that germinated from the fear of darkness?
Well, I don't know that I would agree with that, but I will say this, that we just talked about it, the history of man and how man tried to control man and influence man and induce fear into his thinking of not having or not knowing. So I would blame our fellow man on that one. And even though that statement does have its place, right? Fear of the dark.
I think too that it might be that it was the manipulation of religion that created the fear of death.
Yes.
Because they wanted to make more money. So that's why they were creating that fear, so that they could offer prayers of salvation in order to gain more money for the church.
It's funny you mentioned that. I wanted to remind everyone, and for those that aren't familiar with it, but I think most of my panel is familiar with Calirian photography, where the aura of people can be seen. And you have to remember that we have a astral body of light that just kind of slips right on in there. Right? So the astral part of us is right here inside this body as well. All right. And try to hold on to that. So you don't need to fear death. All right. Because you are eternal. God gave you eternity. There is no, I think the Russells, there is no such thing as death. Leo, in her book, what I think is one of her masterpieces is Why You Cannot Die. It's just wonderful. And she talks about how it took millions of years in the development of this body just to create the eye and to do what it does. All right. But remember, we're all beings of light. So I'm going to hold this pen up, and the tip of that pin, that little ball right there, is about the size of us. And there we are right there, centered in the pineal gland in the brain between the two hemispheres. And that's called the seat of consciousness. And your aura is connected to what you cannot see, is what we call the river of light, the river of thought. So every thought that ever was, is, or will be is right there. You're connected to it 24/7. So whatever it is you want to know, whatever it is that you'd like to know or discover, it's right there. And the Russells have laid this groundwork for you here through prayer and meditation. You can know and have anything in the world, in the universe you want, but this world has its distractions. It preoccupies, 99.99% of people's time, that they never get a chance to think about little things like that. Yes, Karen.
When I was thinking of the question about the fear of darkness, when you look at the scale of light, and you look at, you can look at lots of charts, and they show you your consciousness, and if with the frequency, and each frequency is related to a color, and the denser and the more fearful, the sad, the grieve, and all the other things sit on those bottom elements. And as we rise, we become more enlightened. We get lighter, and the colors get lighter. That goes back with the aura and the projections of things. So does it germinate the seed in darkness? The darkness is seated in that density of our thinking. So that goes back, I think, to Walter Russell's work, and that everything is mind. So where in that scale are you living? So it's related to that when I look at it from that particular part of a scale of thinking. So
I'm noticing here Rita's comment. She says, I believe that we are eternal spiritual beings, and that there really is no death. The body is the vehicle we use while we're here. We leave the body behind when we're ready to move on. And that's a pretty simple truth right there. So good for you, Rita.
I think we're liquid, solids, and gases, and it just is a recycling system. And that's science.
Yes. And we need to make that separation. There's mind, there's body, there's knowing, there's sensing. And so what we want to do is each day, right, you want to challenge yourself. Say, okay, what part of my day do I want to be in a state of knowing, right, versus a state of sensing? And there's no right or wrong there. It's just the two different worlds that we can live in simultaneously. And they're both good.
Okay,
all right, they're both wonderful.
John, here's one. My question is, where did the soul come from? I think that's an easy answer for you.
Yes. Okay, Bonnie. Bonnie, are you over the ocean?
Your sense of humor. Bonnie lies over the ocean. The ocean.
All right.
Ahead.
Bonnie, there is only one mind, and there's just simply endless extensions of that one mind. So try not to think of yourself or us as individuals, even though we do have that sovereignty that was gifted to us from our Creator. All right. So, and to know that we are the only creation created by a Creator that has the ability to be aware of our soul selves, of our mind consciousness. Nothing else in the universe. The sun is not aware of itself. The tree is not aware of itself. It just does. It's commanded to do from its soul seed. Now, there's a long story behind of how we came into being. I've heard several versions, but the one that I like is that our Creator. Now, you have to think about this, right? Try to just envision this giant sphere of thoughts, undivided light, and it just is. So supposedly, our Creator contemplated himself or itself. And in that moment of contemplation, all the light beings that would be created, that would be birthed from that thought, is how we got here. And here we are. So you were born with all there is to know. All right. And so when we finally occupied these bodies, because for billions and billions of years, we didn't need a body. We're out there floating throughout the universe in our astral bodies and thinking, wow, okay, this is great. But it'd be a nice place to stop over. And maybe we'll create a sun that'll birth planets, and we'll watch a sunset or watch a sunrise, or, we'll stop and smell a flower one day and through a body instead of just passing through it as light. So I know that's a long-winded answer, Bonnie, but I don't know exactly. Go ahead, Margaret.
Another way to express it too is that it's desire. The Russells always indicated that it starts with desire. And so Bonnie desired to give form. Her soul desired to give form. Now, in her book, Why You Cannot Die, Leo Russell, she didn't call it evolution. She called it unfolding. So in other words, we actually all started as a very simple one-cell creature at one point. But as the conditions upon the earth grew more favorable, our bodies were able to grow in complexity. And that, of course, took millions of years, billions, And so now that conditions on Earth are reasonable, we have exceeded the dawn of awareness. But even so, spiritually, Leah Russell would say that we're not even at a teenage stage yet, spiritually. We have so much further to go as man in the mass. We have so much further to go. And as we get further and further spiritually, the wars in the world will diminish and fade away.
Yes.
And we will have, a world of peace. So many people say, well, we'll never see it in our lifetimes. That's probably true. But Leo often said it could change in the twinkling of an eye.
That's right.
That's the hope for the internet, really, because, when you have something as simple as the Russells' teachings, you realize, my gosh, the solution is so simple.
Yes.
If people would just go out there, and help their neighbor, build a strong family, build a great community, be an ethical mayor for your town,
Yes.
you could change it in the twinkling of an eye. And so I know that in our next lesson for next week, Leo's going to show the qualities of that first great civilization in Egypt from 6,000 years ago. What made it so great? And what is it that we can do today to allow ourselves to get back to that stage? Because as you remember in Unit 3, when she said, we used to think of ancient civilizations as being so primitive. And then she said, well, those people back then were us. So, in other words, it is our story.
Yes,
And so the people from back then were us. The people in the future will be us again. It is our story. So it's easy for us to change it in the twinkling of an eye if we have the right knowledge.
I love that. And Karen, you mentioned Robert Kennedy Jr., his uncle. One of my favorite quotes of his uncle, John F. Kennedy, in his inaugural address was, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yep.
And that's where, he was bringing this country together to where each one of us individually, make a contribution to the collective for the betterment of the whole. And you're right, Margaret, and Leo was right. Mankind could, snap of a finger, could change his thinking, and the whole world would be a different place. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but it could. It could happen at any moment. Who knows?
Well, I've heard some different prophecies of different peoples, and a couple of them are basically saying this. We might have a little bit of a rocky road for another year or so until we all kind of wake up and then take control, just like people are in the places where there are hurricanes, the community's taking care of it. But in a twinkle of an eye, we will see a beautiful world. And we don't have to be subjugated to other people's control. So I think that in the end is what it is. And I always think of the dandy puff, because there's always that main seed and there's a bunch of seeds, and we're seeds of that divine. We're seeds of that. So, yeah.
And actually, John alluded to the quote earlier. Rumi actually said it this way. He said, we're not a drop in the ocean. We're an ocean in the drop.
Wow.
Yeah. So Rumi turned it, and that's true, because, everything mirrors everything else.
Yeah.
So never think of yourself as a drop in the ocean. Rumi said, we are that ocean in the drop.
Yeah. That's a great reminder, Margaret. That's beautifully said.
Right.
Now, James, I believe that at the 8:30 hour, we conclude the actual lesson for the evening, and then we sit back We take questions, and I believe, Karen, you have put together another beautiful video for us for this lesson.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to play the an amalgamation of all of 4, or whether he's going to play just a short version of this one. Is he going to do James? What are you going to do?
It's all back to you now, James.
James, what are you going to do?
That's right.
Sorry, I was muted. It is the one. Let's see. It's the last one I downloaded that is about 4, maybe 5 minutes long. A little over 4 minutes long.
One. That's just a summation, a little bit of this one.
So that's the one I have.
Okay, and I would say to everybody else to go back and load the other one, because it is a cleanup and it's a full version of sort of an overview of lesson 4.
Yeah, so the other one will be on YouTube if it's ready to go, Karen, and then we'll have a playlist that I will post on Facebook and YouTube for everyone to see.
Okay.
All right. So without further ado, the lovely, great, and talented Karen Elkins.
Bye.
Here we go.
That one was a bit ominous.
I loved your visuals, Karen.
Thank you.
Very, very powerful.
Yes, Karen, another wonderful job there. And isn't it interesting how our lesson this evening ends, as yours did, with Leo Russell's Code of Ethics?
Yep. And I'm going to do one on that one because that one goes way too quick. And we did that one, you kind of need to kind of savor. So that one needs one of its own.
I'm wondering, John, maybe we should read the Code of Ethics to close us out.
Yeah, I think that's where it goes.
Yes.
Yeah, shall I start?
Why don't you start?
Yeah. I'll do the first 5, okay?
All right.
Leo Russell's Code of Ethics for a Living Philosophy. To bring blessings upon yourself, bless your neighbor. To enrich yourself, enrich your neighbor. Honor your neighbor, and your neighbor will honor you. To sorely hurt yourself, hurt your neighbor. He who seeks love will find it by giving it.
Very good. Karen, you want to finish the last 5?
Okay. The measure of man's wealth is the measure of wealth he has given. To enrich yourself with many friends, enrich yourself, your friends with yourself. That's when you take away from any man, the world will take away from you. When you take the first steps to give yourself to that which you want, it will always take the first step to give itself to you. You want the last ones there, John? Do you want me to keep reading?
All right. I'll finish it out. Let me take it home here for us. Peace and happiness do not come to you from your horizon. They spread from you out to infinity beyond your horizon. The whole universe is a mirror which reflects back to you that which you radiate into it. And love is unto the ascent of a high mountain peak. It comes ever nearer to you as you go ever nearer to it. So if people need a little roadmap, if they need a little crutch, wouldn't be a bad idea to have Leo Russell's Code of Ethics. Our listening audience can order one of these from the University of Science and Philosophy's homepage, philosophy.org. And there's a lot of other great things on there too that you could order. But every civilization, every home, every entity needs a basis for which to live by. And I think Leo did a great job on these Code of Ethics. Really is. Not that the 10 Commandments, there's anything wrong with that. Okay. But they were okay for its time. All right. And they're still okay, but it could have been done a little bit better. And so that's what man does, right? Man improves, man grows day by day, thought by thought. So as we wrap up here, I would like to thank my fellow panel members and James and Joey for their patience with me hosting this evening's podcast. And I know I'm a blessed man to have these two lovely ladies here joining me this evening.
So thank you all for all the people participating online with their comments and questions too.
Yes. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're going to say goodbye this evening. And then next Sunday, we'll pick up on lesson 18 and the birth of character. So this will give us a week to reflect on what we've discussed this evening, on what character is and how important a role it plays in society and civilization. So anyway, to my panel and to Joey and James and to our audience, we do thank you. And we'll look forward to next week. Okay.